Woo! It is time for your Zomia ONE Underground Wednesday Q&A, and we have so many questions to get into, great questions to get into. Got a lot of interesting response to the Crypto Anarchy episode that we did last week, the Q&A from last week. I'm going to put all that together, and we'll probably I might even do a Zomia ONE special of some kind, to really break that down. Got some positive feedback, got some negative feedback. People, saying, "Oh, you got Crypto Anarchy all wrong." I don't think I got it all wrong. No, and I sure as fuck didn't get cypherpunks wrong. Sorry, I've been in that scene almost as long as that's been a scene. No, so and anybody, fucking A. I see on Twitter sometimes, because I'm on Twitter. Okay, I'm there. It's the only place I'm really going to hang my hat as far as any of this shit goes. And I will be there for, really probably till they shut the lights out, unless somehow I really can finally convince everybody to get the fuck off of these platforms. But anyway, there needs to be one for where, various aspects of Zomia ONE can be represented, can get in touch, and I can help promote other hosts on the platform, on the network. So, okay, fine. So I'm there. And I see these guys who it doesn't matter to me how fucking anonymous, and I don't mean that bullshit group. I mean, I don't care how fucking anonymous you may think you are or what you're doing and that your Twitter account is, and good luck even making an anonymous Twitter account these days. I don't care. If you are, because you got these idiots, maybe I'll start highlighting them. Okay. On the, I'll start retweeting them. I just don't want to give them the attention, but maybe I'll start retweeting them. You get these fucking idiots who are on there and they're like bragging about supposedly, and I say supposedly and put that in caps, what they've done, it's like the movie Hackers or something, their righteous hack or whatever the fuck they've done. And they're like, yeah, cypherpunk, and blah, blah, blah. Look, I know if you were an actual, quote unquote hacker or cypherpunk back, and you've been in that scene for long enough to where you're even, worthwhile to call yourself one, you'd know you never tell anybody about this shit. You don't even type it out. Because that's too fucking risky if you've actually done something and, done a great hack, whatever the fuck that even means anymore. Oh, it's fucking asinine. And if you're doing this shit for the fame, man, you've got it all wrong. You got to do this shit intrinsically, No. Anyway, well, we're going to talk about encrypted chats and some of that stuff a little later on in this episode, but that kind of shit's just unbelievable. Because, one of the reasons I find it unbelievable. So I was going out for a run the other day, and beautiful. Ice Planet Zero here in New Hampshire is really, really thought out. And I was going for a run, was talking with somebody, and, got into some of my, history with the military and everything. And, I mentioned how, so I was telling a bit of a story about how, when I was a kid, that I lived near an Air Force base in New York. And I got very good, I'd go to Commander's Day and everything there. And I got very good at being able to identify what each jet was. No matter how high in the sky they were, just by the contrails, I could tell you, by the jet streams, I could tell you what kind of jet it was. If it was a F-16, F-14, F-18, whatever. I knew. And yes, they even had F-117s there. They did. So anyway, I was talking about that, and I was talking about the differences in F-16 and everything. And suddenly I opened up my phone because I had my phone with me while out. And fucking the thing, I start getting stories in I don't have Google Assistant on, but in Google, what it adds up to being Google Now or whatever the hell that is when you hit the home button on an Android phone. And suddenly it's giving me stories about F-16s. I've never, ever searched for anything about F-16s on Google. I know that. I never have. And then suddenly it's telling me the story about F-16s. And there's a bunch of other cases like this. It's getting a little odd. What the fuck the deal is with that, and I'm not going to make any claims either way. I'm just going to say it's getting a little odd, and I'm getting a little worried about that. I mean, there's been some degree of proof that like apps like Twitter are listening for, like, they're listening to the commercials that they hear when you're watching TV and stuff like this. There's been some proof that that is actually a thing. We've talked about that on Sovereign Tech in the past. Yeah, man. I mean, look, like, I haven't gone so far with my phone. Like, I have little stickers, removable stickers. Of course, a lot of people put stickers on over their laptop webcam. That's not uncommon. I do that, obviously, as well. But I put stickers over my phone cameras as well. In fact, I'll tell you. So I've been rocking a Moto X4 here for a little while. And most companies have gone nuts with having like these multiple cameras on the back. And so you got to have like this huge sticker to cover all these cameras. And a part of me is like half thinking that, like, I mean, I know this isn't the reason that they're doing it, but like a part of me's thing is like, oh, they're adding, I mean, because some of these phones now are coming with like 4 or 5 cameras on the back. It's like, what the hell? And, they just, do they just want to give you a hard time with your stickers? And they're like, well, you're going to have to put something, completely over the back if you want to block cameras, and they just don't want you to block those cameras. I don't know. But anyway, fortunately, with only 2 cameras on the back of the X4, I do have a sticker big enough to cover both of them. But I have my cameras covered at all times. I have not gotten to the point where, I'm ripping out my microphone, even though, look, I hate talking on the phone. I hate talking on text too. I much prefer to be in person with the person. I mean, there's so much to that, that allows for real human connection. I wouldn't miss much if I stripped the microphone, out of my phone. I might do that. I mean, and the easy solution to that is that you can just plug in a pair of headphones with the microphone on it that would hopefully have a kill switch that, where you could use the microphone from that if you really needed a microphone. But I mean, I'm getting to that point. Like, this is starting to get weird. Some of the stuff that pops up that it considers relevant, where I know I've never typed it in and it just comes up. But anyway, moral of the story is keep your microwaves handy, folks. Anyway, let's get into some of these questions here. In fact, I might get into a rapid fire section a bit later on, but let's get into the questions. So here we go. Got a couple of tech questions, I guess one a bit about ethics here later on. And we do have an interesting, if you've been listening to the Hard and Fast podcast, you actually know what our album of the week is already this week, but we got an interesting one to get into as far as that goes. Anyway, let's read the question here. Hey Stallion, I noticed that Riot.IM forced me to uninstall the previous version of their app on Android and made me reinstall a new version. I've looked up about some of what happened, and I heard there was an injection attack on the Matrix servers that Riot runs on. Any details on this? I know I've heard you recommend the app in the past. Okay, there's another question here. That's fine. I'll do both, but well, all right, I'll read the next one, then we'll go over all of it. Also, I've had trouble finding a good encrypted messaging option in Tails that will stay in persistent storage. If Riot.im is still on the okay list, is this an option? Okay, so yeah, the answer to the second one is totally, reliant upon the answer to the first question. Let's talk about this. So I think this is a couple weeks ago. And I might have briefly mentioned it on Sovereign Tech, I'm not sure. But Riot.im, which is a fully distributed, decentralized, open source, very well done. There were some concerns over companies that had bought the tech more or less, but it's still fully open source. There's really nothing fishy going on there. I know there were some concerns around that. But it really gives you everything. It is this amazing. I mean, it has desktop apps. It has a web app. In fact, the web app just recently went into version 1.0. Finally came out of beta. It's an iOS app. I mean, it's everywhere. It's an app that it will drain your battery pretty good, laptop or otherwise, or smartphone. But it's full featured in that it allows for groups, it allows for private messaging, encrypted private messaging with really great encryption. It allows for video calls, group video calls, audio chat. I mean, it just anything you can basically imagine. It can pretty much do everything except for maybe like Facebook newsfeed-esque threading. message threading or post threading, right? Which seems to be the one feature that like every alternative to Facebook is missing. And I can't fucking grasp why that's still not a thing. Like on various, whatever platform. I mean, Twitter kind of has that, but then Twitter doesn't have groups. If Twitter, I've said this a million times over the years, if Twitter came out with groups, they could take out Facebook, or at least Facebook proper, tomorrow. I mean, they really could, because then they'd finally have the thing. But I guess Twitter's probably, all right, let me talk about that for a second, because I've given this a lot of thought. Like, Twitter's got to know that this is a no-brainer to do. And you have Jack Dorsey constantly saying, oh, I approached Twitter wrong. I need to make drastic changes to Twitter, blah, blah. I mean, I think he's literally given TED Talks about this recently. It's so insane. I think, just my opinion, I haven't heard this anywhere else, my opinion, I think the reason that Twitter doesn't do groups is because they are terrified if they put in groups, the same thing would happen to Twitter that happened to Facebook, where the news feed becomes a ghost town. Okay, and where basically the Twitter feed would become a ghost town and everybody would just go stick into their groups. I don't know that exactly would happen, but I think they're worried that it would. Because that really did happen with the newsfeed. Like, I didn't, for the longest time, I had been telling people, delete Facebook, delete Facebook, delete Facebook. And everybody's like, oh no, I can't. And I didn't understand why they couldn't, because they're not posting anything on Facebook. I don't even necessarily think they're really using Messenger. I didn't understand, what the fuck are you using Facebook for? Why can't you delete it? You never use it, or at least it appears you never use it. And come to find out, oh no, they use Facebook groups. Oh, they're in various private groups for things. Oh, okay. So, I mean, that's a real thing, and maybe that's what Twitter's worried about as far as that goes. Anyway, all of that, I don't even know how I got on that tangent now. But, oh, right, we're talking about what Riot.IM can do. Okay, so Riot.IM, I mean, this is really for me, for Brian Sovereign, this is very much a dream platform, because it does so much right. It is hosted. It's basically like IRC on steroids, which is, I mean, because you can do file sharing. I mean, you can do all this stuff, which is, I'm a huge proponent of IRC. I love IRC. I still run an IRC channel. I'm a big fan. Okay. Riot.im, or just Riot, if you want me to call it that. I mean, it's similar, it could even work much like Slack or like Rocket Chat and some of these other ones, So, but it really is trying to be, I think, a replacement for IRC, like a more modern version of that. And I'm not saying IRC even needs to be replaced, but whatever, I get it. Riot.im does a lot of things right, and it does it well, and the video calls and all. I mean, it's nice that the video calls are encrypted. I mean, really, in many ways, it has more features than Telegram does. It's pretty fucking incredible. So anyway, what happened a couple weeks ago is that now Riot.im, like I said, it's distributed, meaning you can take the code base and you can download it right from, hell, I think it's right on GitHub. And you can install it, on your own servers, and you can run the software completely on your own. You don't have to connect it to what Riot.im does by default, which is, or when you normally download it, say from their website or from the Google Play Store or from the iOS App Store. Normally it'll just set up on the matrix.org servers. So what ended up happening a couple weeks ago is that there was I guess what could be classified as an injection attack on the matrix.org servers themselves. But here's the thing. Okay, this is the important thing to understand. There wasn't a flaw in Riot software. There wasn't a flaw with Riot.im. There was a flaw with the Matrix server. Like, that's where the attack, or that's where the exploit potentially was going to happen. Now, Riot jumped on this. I mean, and it was a red alert, all hands on deck, the whole thing. And they were fairly upfront, quickly upfront, and giving like live updates on Twitter, actually, about what was going on. And they have already come out with updated versions of the software that I'm guessing is, as far as what I've seen, where it's pointing at, it's pointing away from the problematic, shall we say, server. And also, they went so far as to say, because now, a few different things happened here. Like, if you had backup keys, if they were backup keys stored on the matrix.org server, those weren't going to be worth anything to you, which that's a bit of a problem, because if you had, encrypted messages from the past, again, using the matrix.org server, you lost those. I mean, because like those keys aren't going to work, and they can't afford to let them work, because then potentially whoever was attacking that server, they could end up seeing your message history or whatever, and so it's better that you lose it than anything else. Now, if you were storing your keys client side, okay, which, I mean, there's a few different options when you're trying to back up your private keys for Riot.IM, which is good. You want to have options, right? Options are freedom. If you were storing them device, client side, you could still decrypt all of your messages. So that's something you might want to do going forward. Anyway, the important takeaway here, okay, don't have to spend a whole ton of time on this, but the important takeaway here is that the issue wasn't with Riot.IM itself. The issue was with the Matrix server. So if you or anybody running Riot.IM on on their own private server, no problem. You didn't have anything to worry about as far as this goes. And I mean, personally, I think Riot.IM is great. I mean, I'm a big fan. I think that they got out in front of this pretty quickly. I think we're still figuring out what exactly happened here. I haven't gotten all of the live updates on the matter, but I think they've handled this great. And they did force. This was, this is pretty, in my opinion, this is very extreme in my opinion. But if they think that that's how it's got to go, that's how it's got to go. They basically forced you. They put out an update, at least on Android. I don't know if this was the same in iOS, but on Android a couple days ago, they pushed out an update that renamed your initial, say you had Riot.IM installed on your smartphone and you've had it there for a long time. They pushed out an update that turned it into, that renamed it to like old Riot.IM. And it killed all the functionality in Riot.IM other than allowing you to back up your keys, okay, or to do an export of your keys. And then they tell you, and then like a message comes up when you open up old Riot.IM, this new version of the app. It says, reinstall uninstall this after you've backed up the keys, then it reinstall the new version of Riot.IM. I mean, they really, really went out there to make sure that no one is using a potentially, is accessing a potentially exploited server, or not potentially, was, well, at the very least, bad shit happened. Okay. But bottom line, as far as, what that looked like in reality, what kind of data was accessed or anything like that, it's another story. That's solved, and that you are using the latest version of the app that has, that is securing against whatever issue is happening there with the Matrix servers. But again, this really mainly had to do with the Matrix servers itself. Okay. So Riot.IM in general, the app itself is, in my opinion, still solid. And do these things kind of happen? Are these like a nature of varying growing pains with software of this type? Sure. I mean, these kinds of tools like Riot.IM, like Signal and others, I mean, it's been somewhat of a minor miracle. And look, Signal hasn't had like the perfect track record either. There were issues with RAM leaks. I mean, there have been problems. Okay. And you get these things licked, you figure them out, and, you solve them as fast as you can, and you do what you have to do. I appreciate the extreme lengths to which Riot.IM went, basically forcing you to install a new version of the app. One could say, oh, what if somebody took over Riot.IM and then, well, look, this is the nature of apps, is that, and auto updates. And, that's a two-edged sword. But that, yeah, you could, effectively download an update that makes your previous version, unusable. I mean, you could go to APK Mirror or maybe get an older version or whatever. But yeah, I mean, these are the dangers. So I am not going to come out and say I don't trust Riot.IM. I mean, again, these things do happen. All right. I still think it's totally viable. It is one of the truly full-featured, encrypted and distributed pieces of software out there. I mean, it really is. Like, I mean, this is one of those pieces of software that I fully support people supporting, So yeah, I still think, I mean, that's basically what went down. Again, the main issue wasn't even necessarily the software, more the main issue was the server. So I still recommend Riot.IM. There's a lot of things, actually, I wish I could do more with Riot.IM that maybe I have to figure out, and maybe we'll figure out how to make happen. I mean, understand a lot of the services and technologies that I have used, at least in the past couple of years, have really been to, I mean, it's like straight up, it's been to get content, make content, and have accessibility for patrons, for Sovereign Tech patrons. I mean, that's just the reality of the situation. And so if I can change that up to where I don't have to make things that maybe are and I'm not blaming anybody, I'm just saying it's the nature of the beast. But if I can use more like Riot.IM to do a lot more of the, say, video recordings or audio recordings or whatever, and maybe a lot of different communication stuff, I mean, I'd be on board with that. I really, really would. If I could get my clients off of Slack and get them using Riot.IM or something, I mean, that'd be dynamite, or hell, even Rocket Chat. Rocket Chat's another great one, that's in a similar vein. And that allows it to work in a web browser, which that's kind of a key thing too, right? And that gets into our second part of the question, which is, let me reread the second part of the question here. Also, I've had trouble finding a good encrypted messaging option in Tails, that being the OS, that will stay in persistent storage. If Riot.IM is still on the OK list, which Stallion breaking in, yes, it is this an option? Okay, so this is another area where Riot.IM really stands tall. There's another option here, but well, I'll talk about that. So Tails, which of course I recommend everybody run or at least have as an option, at the very least, have go buy one of those. I mean, they cost nothing. I bought one the other day. I think it was $12, a 64 gig. It was a Silicon Power, I think, a 64 gig flash drive that can sit on your key ring. You get if you want to only do 32 gig. I mean, to run Tails, you don't need much. But even if you just want to do a 32 gig, fine. It's like $8. And, you can install Tails on it. And in fact, if you're using a Windows machine, you don't have to do the double Tails install thing anymore, where you had to have like another installation of Tails on another USB drive to be able to pull it off the Windows. Whatever. Anyway, whatever. You don't have to do it. You don't have to have the two USB drives anymore, like you used to. But you just buy one of those and they're indestructible. Like they're waterproof. They're everything. I mean, and I know, like I take my keys in with me into the shower at the gym. And I mean, I come home and I boot into Tails all the time. I use Tails 90% of the time that I'm computing. And and it's rock solid and it's great. So, I mean, there's no reason not to do it. I mean, and there's no cost really cannot possibly be a barrier to entry. And the install process is, has only gotten simpler, especially with recent versions of Tails that, I don't know, everybody and their mother, I think should be using Tails. But anyway, now when you're using Tails, one of the things that you can set up is persistent storage. And that's a fairly easy process once you find the command or, when you go into it's all GUI. You don't have to really break into terminal at all. But when you go up to the, basically the start menu for Tails and you bring it all down, I miss that about Tails. Tails used to make it hide and look like it was Windows XP. I guess they just stopped doing that, but I always thought that was cute. Anyway, that's not a thing anymore. But when you go up to the menu and you can find where you can set up persistent storage and all this, and you just, make a password and everything to be able to log into, and you can choose whether or not you want persistent storage to boot up every time you boot into Tails. Not all apps work with, even though you can set up as persistent storage, and Tails is basically is a very locked down version of Debian. Yeah, not every app works well with persistent storage. I mean, you can install VLC. There's a few different apps that you can install on there, but there's some that even if they're in the repo, even if they're in the software installer, that they don't really work. Like they have some other dependency or whatever that Tails is blocking out, which is great in my opinion. Now, the other option is that, okay, well, maybe I can't install this software and have it work independently and keep everything going. I mean, the easiest encrypted messaging to do in Tails, of course, would be PGP email, because, it's practically designed to do that. It has Thunderbird automatically, and you can set up a whole bunch of shit with that, using, is that Enigmail? Yeah. Anyway, so that's fairly easy to set up as well. Not as easy as maybe some of these messaging services. So anyway, like you could, for example, software that won't just work. Telegram. I think you can install. I think Telegram's in the software list when you go in the software repo when you go to install that, but it won't boot up. Same with, I think the same is true for Signal, and part of that probably has to do with Electron, but that being, the Electron framework. So the two real options, I mean, let's just cut to the chase. The two real options that I see, and you got to keep this in mind, because like, okay, great. You want, say you just use a version that works via a website, okay, or something. Well, then, is it going to work with the Tor browser? Because the Tor browser is a heavily trimmed down and locked down version of Firefox. Will it work in that? And there are some of those that don't work in that. Some web clients for messaging services that won't work in the Tor browser for varying reasons, JavaScript, what have you. And the two that do work. Now, Telegram for web does work. Okay. The only thing is you'll have to keep re-logging in. I mean, this is kind of true anyway. And this is, again, just by the nature of Tails. You have to keep re-logging into Telegram, which might be a little bit of a pain in the ass if you have so much two-factor authentication set up. So you've got that. The other is, yes, Riot.IM on the website, which, again, like I mentioned, is up to version 1.0. Actually, it's probably 1.1 now after, that whole scare that happened with the server problem. Yeah, it works, and it works beautifully. And there wasn't a feature that I had tried where it didn't work very well. So I did look into that. So, I mean, that's a great option to have because it can just work in the Tor browser as you're there. And it, has the cross-platform, cross-device, chat. So if you have that also on your smartphone or something, you're in pretty good shape. I mean, Telegram, kind of the same way. Difference being is that you're trusting perhaps not the best encryption when it comes to Telegram, obviously, which we talk about all the time, is where Riot.im a lot more solid. So yeah, Riot.im I think is a great, if you are rocking Tails and you don't just want to communicate via email, which, PGP encrypted email still the best way to go in my opinion, and you don't want to do that, then Riot.im is probably your best option. I mean, we could talk about IRC and like using, Pigeon or something like that. But yeah, Riot.im I think is really, really solid. And it's something that is actively developed and, we saw how quickly they responded to the situation recently. And my hat's off to them for how they did handle that. So, Riot.im still on the okay list as far as, messaging options. I mean, I put it up there fairly close to Signal as far as something that I trust. And especially if you're running your own implementation of it on your own server. That's pretty great. I mean, the fact that you can even do that. In fact, it overtakes Signal in that sense because, Moxie Marlinspike, the creator of Signal, maintainer of Signal, has come out and said that he's not going like with a federated distributed model really. So, again, cheers to Riot.im. I don't think you can run in persistent storage. In Tails, I have not tried RetroShare in persistent storage. If someone wants to give that a shot, you can let me know. And I would be intrigued to see if that worked in Tails persistent storage and was able to keep on going, because that's, of course, that's an entire distributed internet, not just messaging, which is a beautiful fucking thing. So anyway, okay, let's get on to another, it ended off with keep rocking it, Savzu. Thank you so much. Let's get on to another question here. Got another tech question. Man of Tomorrow. Very much appreciated your appeal to get away from Windows 10 on the latest episode of Sovereign Tech Prime. I know, it's not Prime anymore. Whew, thank you. No, that's fine. I really don't give that. I don't care that much about that. Anyway, I'm new to the Zomia ONE Underground. Welcome. And I'm sure you've talked about this before, but what version of Linux should I use if I'm going to make the ultimate switch? Okay, so we have talked about this. Comes up all the time. And I get these questions a lot. There have been more of these questions have come up lately. But since it was a freshly discussed thing on a Sovereign Tech episode, I suppose it's worth revisiting a bit again. I mean, there have been a lot of newcomers, honestly, recently in the Linux space as far as distros go. And there have been some that have fallen away. And it raises an important point to bring up, which is if you like read, go to like, I don't know, Distro Watch, like, I mean, there's a bunch of different sites like this and even Forbes now. I mean, well, we were actually reading a Forbes article, weren't we, on Sovereign Tech? But more so than Forbes, I mean, all kinds of major news sites are finally really raising the flag. And I'm glad saying, hey, everybody use Linux, hashtag use Linux, right? I mean, they're really starting to say it because the Windows 10 stuff's getting crazy. Everything's just getting crazy out there. And people are really asking for solutions. Are there alternatives? And so obviously these major news sources are finally starting to, well, put it out there, what these alternatives are. Now, the thing is that they'll talk about, I don't know, some new streamlined version of Linux, or they'll talk about Elementary OS or something like that, which Elementary OS is beautiful for what it is. I'm not taking anything away from that. Here's the thing, okay? A lot of there are some established players in Linux that have been around for a long time, almost as long as there has been Linux. Okay. And you really do want to stick with those. And I'll explain why. Okay. The reason is that there are distros where a lot of them are, I mean, all of Linux is in a very real way community run. I mean, there's the Linux Foundation, sure, that gets donations, and, Linus is in charge of things there and all that. Sure. But a lot of these like independent distros or these little distros are run. I mean, maybe there's like a company behind them for now, but that company can go the way of the dodo, or the community supporting one version of Linux. There might be some internal scuffle that happens after 4 or 5 years. Now, here's the thing. I mean, one of the appeals for using Linux, and I might have brought this up, on Sovereign Tech, is that, you could run with one, or you could run some systems, older systems, forever on a version of Linux. And hell, you might not even ever have to reboot it and you'll keep getting updates. Here's the thing. If there's some kind of internal scuffle with the development team for some little, minor version of distribution of Linux, you might not get updates anymore. And that's one of the big deals here. This is part of the appeal for using Linux, is the security aspect of it. Okay, I mean, there's another argument to be had for the fact that, well, when a computer actually does what you tell it to do, and you have like actual total control of the operating system, you can have a lot more fun with it. You can make computing fun again. That's a tagline that other distributions, OSs have used in the past. But yeah, I don't trust even, there have been internal scuffles with Linux Mint lately, and Mint is a very, very popular version of Linux, of course, based on Ubuntu, and Ubuntu being based upon Debian. I've said this before, I'll say it again, and it's the one that I recommended on Sovereign Tech. I would use Ubuntu because it's been around, it's been tested. Yeah, it's based on Debian. I mean, but it's easier to use and install than Debian, even though Debian has gotten significantly better about that over recent years. So, if you want to, use Debian, that's fine. But if you're new to the whole game, I would say just go with straight Ubuntu, because it's not going to go anywhere. You're going to get plenty of updates for that. There is somewhat of not that profit matters in Linux. In fact, honestly, Linux is kind of post-profit in a very real way. But I like the business model that Ubuntu does. How they make their money is with support, not by selling you the operating system, but just by making sure that enterprise or whoever happens to use it, gets the best support that they possibly can. That's a great way to make money off of Linux deving. And so, yeah, I would just go with straight Ubuntu, because that is not going to go anywhere. I mean, if something happened to, I guarantee you, if something happened to Canonical, the company that maintains Ubuntu and keeps pushing Ubuntu out, if something ever happened there money-wise, people would step in so fucking fast. There would be money men in there in a heartbeat, because so much of the world, hell, fucking Google, I still think this is true today, that the most used operating system in Google as a company is Ubuntu. I mean, everybody fucking uses that. So, it's not going to go anywhere. So I would stick with the biggies, you know, either Debian or Ubuntu, which again, Ubuntu is based upon Debian, or you know, Fedora is another great one, which Fedora is somewhat maintained by Red Hat, which Red Hat, well, just got bought out by IBM. I don't think that has any negative, and we talked about this on Sovereign Tech when it happened. I don't think it has any negative effect whatsoever upon Red Hat or upon Fedora for that matter. Partly because you can't go fucking with it, you know. I mean, like you know, go screwing around with Red Hat, you know, Linux, and you're going to, you know, you're screwing the world. The importance of maintaining and having, you know, Red Hat Linux in your, shall we say, as a feather in your cap, ironically, you know, as IBM, is because it's so used and so relied upon that you know, for you to be about, you know, as a company, to be about having secure and sustainable infrastructure out there, you want to make sure Red Hat survives. You know, it's in your best interest for it to thrive. So that's why I say stick with the big ones. Okay, stick with the ones that have been around for a while, because again, like they're not going to go anywhere, and you're not going to have to deal with. I mean, I'll tell you, I get worried because I feel like, you know, a lot, especially with a lot of these minor distros, and they might do some really cool shit. You know, they really might. But some of these minor Linux distros, like the teams behind it, I don't know how much I trust them. And if somebody just gets into some petty squabble, you know, over who the hell knows what, who knows what they do? I don't know. I don't like it. I don't like it. So, yeah, once again, I would stick with Ubuntu or Fedora. You know, those would be my top two. I wouldn't even go like with Linux Mint. I mean, if you want to rock Tails, but Tails is kind of a different situation. This is really, again, if you're starting off. I mean, if you want to go like knee deep and you've got the time, you know, if you're living out on that log cabin, like we talked about, and having the time of your life, and you know, you have lots of free time, run Slackware. Slackware is fucking that is OG Linux, right? I mean, man, I haven't used Slackware, not Slackware. I haven't used Slackware in so long, but fuck, if you can learn Slackware, you know Linux, like stem to stern, and then you could fucking use anything once you learn Slackware. So that's another option too. That's been around for a while. That's never gonna stop pumping out. So, so those are my recommendations as far as that goes. And you know, again, the time's right. Like, it's now. You know, I'm sure that May 2019 update's coming, you know, from Windows for Windows 10. I mean, you know, isn't it kind of weird? Like Edge, you know, like they're backporting Edge to Windows 7 and all this stuff. Something's not right over at Microsoft. I don't know what the fuck they're doing. Their plans for whatever the fuck Windows 10 was supposed to be obviously didn't happen. I mean, that is apparent. I don't know if they know what they're doing. Like it's, in my opinion, when you see a company going through that much bullshit and making so many dramatic changes, like backporting support to even to Windows 7, which, I mean, they were pushing so hard to get everybody off of that. Just something doesn't make sense. I mean, and I understand that they're trying to be cross-platform. Like, I get that. And they realize that Windows isn't their bread and butter anymore. Like, I kind of understand that. There's a problem there as well. Okay, with that very concept. I mean, like how they're releasing basically their, you know, a lot of their malware tools, or anti-malware tools to other operating systems. Hell, they're probably going to release it for Linux as well, you know, and there's something very weird about all this. And I don't like it when a company doesn't have like a direction. In fact, I was concerned about this with Ubuntu for a little while, where they seem to be pushing, like they were expecting you to have, you know, Ubuntu on your refrigerator. Now, after a fashion, some do actually, but you know, I think they were expecting you to like use they created the Unity interface, you know, GUI. They went away from GNOME, and which they've gone back to because I think they learned their fucking lesson. But they were going with Unity, and they, you know, I think they were expecting you to like be interacting with like a literal, almost a desktop GUI on your refrigerator or something. And I got worried because like they were losing focus. No, you know, the world needs a desktop operating system, and you fucking stick with it. And I mean, it's interesting to note too. I read a recent interview with Linus Torvalds, of course, and Torvalds. He basically he said he thinks that the future of Linux is with Android and with like Chromebooks, and that's bothersome. I mean, I don't expect him to like know the future. I just need him to maintain that fucking kernel, the Linux kernel. But like Google's not even sticking with Android, for fuck's sake. They're probably was a Fuchsia, right? They're probably going to be running Fuchsia here sooner or later. That's going to affect Chromebooks as well. I mean, even though Chromebooks sure allow you to use Linux apps, but I mean, I think there's probably different ideas for what that's going to look like in the future too. To rely upon Google to be the future of Linux? No. I mean, look, no matter what, Linux is the most used operating system in the world today, and it is. In fact, all those people, I've cracked this joke before. It's the truth. But all those people that bought, the NES or the NES Mini or NES Classic from Nintendo or the Super Nintendo Classic, you just unleashed millions of, or however many, but millions of Linux machines on the world because they're all Linux machines. I mean, Linux is everywhere. So I just need somebody to maintain that kernel. But also, maintain that kernel so that we can still have desktop operating systems that are meant to do what fucking desktop computers or desktop can mean laptop as well. But what, a traditional desktop computer is meant to fucking do, because Windows isn't allowing for that. Mac OS, who the fuck knows what they're doing? I mean, they're going into subscription services, and they're going into, where they want everything just getting installed through the Mac App Store. And it's just bullshit. And iOS apps are getting ported to Mac and all. I mean, fuck it. No, I want a computer that does what computers have been meant to do for decades now. And that's part of the importance of having, Linux there. So anyway, yeah, I worry about with Windows, where, I mean, there's so much to be concerned about. The update cycle is very ugly, but then also, I don't think they know what they're doing. Like, I don't think they know what they even want as a company, Microsoft. I think there's a point where they did. They had a very clear, Satya Nadella, Panos Panay, all of them, they had a very clear focus of what they were trying to do with Windows and what they're trying to do with Microsoft in general. And that plan has totally changed. And I mean, if they're doing a 180, that should terrify the fuck out of all of us. So anyway, let's move on from that. Let's just go to the email inbox, shall we? And just see, we got a little bit of time here before we get into our album of the week, and let's see what shows up. Whoa! Well, it's a very beautiful email that I got, and a ton of questions. Okay, well, we'll save all those for later because there are a lot here, and this is very kind what the person had to say. You bet I'm the beast, baby. No, this is very sweet. Okay. Anyway, actually, I did want to. I have two comments here that ironically are kind of the same thing, which was interesting, but I'll get to those. Let's see what another email here is. We're just doing a little Russian roulette here. Yeah. All right, here's a one-line email. Stallion, you are so fucking sexy. Are you on the market, Master Sovereign? No. Folks, get these market terms and economic terms out of relationships. There's nothing to do with love. Nothing to do with love. I mean, this is whatever. This is cute. Thank you. But no, really, I'm not. No, I'm not available. But this, how unsexy is it to describe love in like economic terms? Well, actually, no. I imagine there's there is a bit of the population. In fact, maybe even some of my listeners who probably would think that that's sexy, like if somebody was talking about love and we're quoting Rothbard at the same time. But I think that's fucking outrageous. Like, love's love. It's something that existed before and outside of economics, and reality check, folks, not everything is economics. I don't think the person even really understood what they were saying, but I mean, just like, it is funny. It's like, oh, are you on the market? Like we're somehow some tradable good. I never use that phrase. So anyway, but I get it. And maybe you're even being, funny in saying that. But no, Master Sovereign is not. Not at all. So anyway, I've gotten a lot of those emails lately. All right, so let's see. Okay, here's a good one. Dear Savzu, I think you are the most important voice on the intertubes today. thank you for all that you do. No, thank you. I love thank you for that feedback. I do have one concern, however. You raise the red flag on Amazon quite a lot on your show, and while I'm not a long-time listener, I understand that you have been raising that flag against them for years. However, you admittedly still shop through them. Can you get this square peg into a round hole for me? Okay, I might have answered something like this recently, or I might have gotten to a question like this again recently, but I guess I could readdress it here a bit. Yeah, do I raise the red flag against Amazon? Yeah, because I think nobody noticed that they were going to become the tech giant that would take down and eat up all other tech giants. And that is a process that is still going on, and that other tech journalists, again, over the past couple of years have finally started to admit, even though I've been calling it for years and years and years, and have gotten credit actually and praise for my analysis long before Amazon ever put any of these actions into play. And I appreciate that. So anyway, yeah, so you're not a long-time listener. Yeah. Okay. I have been, especially very recently with, shall we say, my life shakeup. I have been very much getting away from buying things on Amazon. Now there's some things, and I've brought this up before, there are some things like ebooks and audiobooks, which, yes, there are ways to torrent either of those, but not all, okay? Where, Amazon really has it cornered. With ebooks, they totally have it cornered with Audible. Granted, I have been an Audible member since before Amazon bought them. So they kind of existed before. The ebook thing would be a little bit easier to get around. I do try to not get my ebooks through Amazon if I can help it. That is not always possible. And ebooks do matter to me, okay, because I like to keep things lean and mean. And, having a gigantic library, I do have some physical books, but having a gigantic library, it would severely, it'd take up a ton of space for all the books that I need just to be able to reference on a regular basis. So anyway, books and those things aside, I'm trying very, very hard to not do that anymore. I'm trying to get my, I don't buy that much anyway, so it's not that big of a deal. The only thing I ever really spend any money on is when it comes to my fitness, like really. I do purchase Blu-rays here and there. Those you don't have to get through Amazon if you don't want to. There's plenty of other ways to get that. I think something is as far as an alternative. Well, all right, let me finish what I'm saying, then I'll tell you about alternatives here. But getting stuff that's related to my, to my fitness and health, I'll buy directly from Under Armour. I won't go through Amazon to do that. There's next to the gym that I go to, there is a GNC that I hit up regularly, and for a lot of that different stuff. And so I have been very consciously trying to not give Amazon money anymore. And so, yeah, it might get used at times, and there's times where it's something that might make the most sense or whatever. Here's an amazing thing. In fact, I was reading, it was an expose, and in the very real sense of the word. It was amazing. If I remember, I'll put a link in the show notes, but I might not remember to do that. I was reading an expose about Corningware, about or Pyrex, not Corning. There's a relationship there, but about Pyrex, about glass that you can put in the oven, right, that you can heat up. And there's two different types. Like there's the soda glass, and then there's the more traditional Pyrex. It begins with a B. I forget the term. Anyway, the interesting thing is that the Pyrex labeled stuff, which you think would be the high end, for the past 15, 20 years has actually been the cheap soda glass, which can shatter on you and shatter in a million pieces, not like in the big pieces like old Pyrex would if it ever even did shatter. And come to find out, like the company that still makes, the traditional, better, higher quality Pyrex dishes or, cookable, these glass dishes that can go in an oven is Amazon Essentials. Or Amazon Basics. Those are two different things. They're both Amazon, but Amazon Basics, and they sell it at like half the price of the actual brand, which has been changing, hands as far as who actually owns it. But as far as compared to the actual brand of Pyrex, And I've noticed this a few times where Amazon Basics has significantly higher quality stuff from, I mean, we're not just talking about name brands. We're talking about, I mean, they're name brands, yes, but like we're talking about brands that have been around for 100 years. It's very weird how that has ended up happening. Like buying, if you think buying Amazon Basics is like some kind of budget option, you're actually, I mean, sure, in some ways it is, but and it certainly is good on a budget. I mean, because it is always fairly inexpensive. But oftentimes their shit ends up being better than the name brands. Not just, I mean, significantly better. And that's weird. You know, I mean, I don't know what exactly is behind that. I'm recording this on an Amazon Basics microphone, and it's better than a Blue Yeti. And I know because I have a Blue Yeti. But it looks more or less like the same technology. It has a far superior sound to that. And it costs, I don't know, a good $30, $40 less. Hell, I got it on sale. I mean, so, you know, I mean, there's something to be said for the fact that what they're putting out there is actually better quality than what you could get if you go to the mom and pop stores. That should not be. It should, you would normally think it's the opposite, right? But it's not. Very, very, I don't know what's going on around that. There is something to extract. There's some kind of story, some kind of truth to extract from that. But I haven't totally formulated that yet, but I'm just bringing it up here, you know, kind of stream of consciousness here. Anyway, so yeah, as far as alternatives go, you know, something to really consider is eBay. I mean, if you want to deal with like smaller companies, eBay's the fucking place. You know, and you can buy, I mean, I know like in the past few years, one of the major complaints against eBay is it's really not the auction site anymore, right? Like it's not where you do find that rare thing. I mean, it still is, just that's not what it's mainly known for now. But eBay is a great option to find whatever the fuck you're looking for. You might not be able to always, like, you know, sometimes, I mean, and it's happened to me where I'll buy a CD or I'll buy a DVD or Blu-ray and I get it and, oh, you know, that looks like a homebrew copy. God damn it. You know, I mean, and that's a risk you take. But that is an option. I mean, and the way that eBay favors the buyer now so much, you can pretty much get your money back anyway. So that's not like the biggest concern. But yeah, eBay is a very interesting option, you know, to go with. Of course, there's Craigslist as far as things that are online. But then a lot of brick and mortar stores have really, you know, kind of taken up the charge against Amazon. And I think they know, like the kind of buyer that they want to attract and that they want to take on this kind of anti-Amazon almost attitude. And, you know, you can go to those places and you can get fairly good prices there, one form or another, you know, whatever sales happening that week. So anyway, I don't need to tell you how to like buy things, but just saying that, yeah, I understand that. But in recent months, I've really tried to be very conscious of this, and for a multitude of reasons. It's not just because of the Amazon World Domination Tour. There are a lot of reasons where I'm frequenting local stores more than even doing anything really online. You know, I think if you want to say, well, if I don't go to Amazon, I'll go to Walmart. I mean, there's a time and place for Walmart, sure. Just like obviously for ebooks and things, there's time and place for Amazon, I suppose. You know, I mean, like, yeah, Walmart's not like, you know, they're granted, they're Amazon's only true competitor, out of anybody. I mean, Apple's not a competitor to Amazon, but Amazon is totally owning Apple. You know, Google's not a competitor to Amazon, but Amazon's owning Google. The only real competitor out there for Amazon is Walmart. You know, so you could say, well, I'm supporting the competition. Yeah, but then if they win, they're just going to end up being on top. So you kind of want to take them both out at the same time if you can. We talk about often, or I tell you, I recommend that we go, you know, we want to take down these tech giants and we go after one at a time. You know, and right now the first one is Facebook, and that, oh boy, I don't know if we're going to get into some of the recent shit about that email fiasco with Facebook, but that just got worse. And we might talk about that in this week's Sovereign Tech. But anyway, you know, we go after Facebook. Once they're done, then we go on to another one. When it comes time to taking down any of these tech giants, understand that, you know, they might not completely go away. Like Facebook, even in my wildest dreams, Facebook would still have Oculus, and Oculus would just be the main company, you know? I'm not saying I want, I'd love it if Oculus spun out of Facebook somehow, but, and I don't know, John Carmack or whoever just bought it out from under Mark Zuckerberg. I mean, that'd be great. I'm not saying my dream is that Facebook continues to own Oculus. I'm just saying these companies are never going to completely go away, but you just cut them down to size to where they work on one thing, and they're not these, juggernauts that own so much of your life. With Amazon, you get them down to being a book company again. Good. That's good. Let Bezos, he loves science fiction books, and I believe he does. I think he is a huge science fiction fan. Let him run his little science fiction book company, and have a good time. And just, the rest we'll ignore. I know some people also are probably asking, what about computer? Newegg's still a great company out there, folks. I mean, they tried to become another Amazon by selling everything. It didn't exactly work, but Newegg's still out there. They still have great shit. But I mean, I've been a Newegg customer forever. I mean, just for the longest goddamn time. But anyway, so that's the deal with Amazon. To put a square peg into the round hole. No, I'm trying to not frequent Amazon as much as I can help it. It's not always possible, and certainly I am not going to cancel my Audible subscription. But again, I've had mine forever. We do what we can do. There's the practicality, not pragmatic, but there's the practicality of how things are right now. And again, if we could cut Amazon down to a book company, great. Because, I love them as a book company. I remember in the late 90s, okay, when Amazon, that's basically all they were doing. I bought so many Star Wars books on the cheap. I thought it was fucking awesome. I'm getting books for, $2. And I'd buy this huge Star Wars library and get to catch up on everything. I don't have a problem with that kind of service existing, as long as they're not attaching everything else and have Alexa and all that other horseshit on me. So anyway, hopefully that made some sense to you. But I really appreciate, what you said about being the most important voice on the intertubes today. I don't want to just let that slide. Thank you. I am honored by that. I don't know that it's exactly true, but thank you. So I really appreciate that. Someone else messaged me, actually, one of my favorite people on the planet, was saying, dude, just listening to some of your shows, moving furniture around, and was thinking that no one is doing a better job of forwarding liberty than the Golden Stallion. The FSP should be propping you up and your methods like none other. Zomia ONE is where it is all at. Woo! And he ended it with a woo, and thank you very much for that. I'm really honored by all of those words. And glad everyone's enjoying Zomia ONE. And it sounds like a lot of you really are. I'm just looking through some of the emails here, just as I'm recording this and going, holy shit, wow. So I'm so glad everybody's digging Zomia ONE. Yeah, thank you. So, okay, we got the last few minutes here. Why don't we get into our album of the week? And this is an album of the week that I really didn't see coming, but it's here, and it is by a band called Hardline, which have been around since the 90s, maybe even 89, but they've been around for a little while. I want to say 92 was probably when they started. They had their first album, Double Eclipse, which has a killer track on it called Hot Sherry. Had Neil Schon in it, of course, of Journey fame. The band, one of the original members at least is still there. Maybe there's two or three, I don't know. But Hardline is a hard rock act. Fitting name to have Hardline. Their new album, which is called Life, which just came out for 2019, is, it's pretty standard fare. It's standard hard rock fare. There's nothing on there, in my opinion, that's going to really make you pump your fist. There's some good songs. Helio Sun is good. Out of Time is good. There's a ballad on there, and it's actually a really strong ballad. I'm just not the biggest fan of ballads. I like them, but you got to give me something more than just the ballads. Like Firehouse, arguably the kings of hard rock ballads or of metal ballads. Firehouse can still give you a song on the same album. Hell, they could give you two or three that'll just kick your ass, on their first album, they'll give you Shake and Tumble and Rock You Tonight and whatever else. They'll hit you, and then they'll get you with the really powerful love song. But with Hardline, with Life, this 2019 album called Life, I feel like, okay, yeah, you got a great ballad on there, and you do, but you don't have much else. Now, they also have, they did a cover of Queen's Who Wants to Live Forever, which is very well known for being from one of my favorite movies of all time, that being Highlander, with, we all know Highlander, right? Just an absolute classic, and, it turned into a classic TV show. But the original movie with Christopher Lambert, tremendous. That Queen soundtrack, Princes of the Universe, Who Wants to Live Forever, all that, It's a Kind of Magic. Actually, the album where you could find a lot of that originally is from It's a Kind of Magic. And just great shit. And Who Wants to Live Forever, epic fucking love song. I mean, Queen killed it with that. Like, just rip your heart out kind of stuff. I don't think Hardline did this song any favors. It's probably a good bet that they did it just because of Bohemian Rhapsody, because of how big Queen is right now. In fact, I was in the Hard Rock Cafe the other day, and that it was amazing. Like, we looked to the side of us, and they're playing the Wayne's World video for Bohemian Rhapsody, which I don't think I've seen that. Because Bohemian Rhapsody, the song, was a big part of Wayne's World 1, the movie Wayne's World 1. I love those movies. I don't think I've seen that since the early 90s. I wasn't even a teenager. Are you kidding? And it was surreal to see that, playing on the screens and over the speakers at the Hard Rock. And I was like, wow, what the fuck? And we're all just looking, we're looking at it. We're like, wow, okay. And so, I mean, Queen is very much in vogue right now. And this is probably an attempt to take advantage of that hype. But it's not bad. It's just like, you're not doing anything for this song. And while I can appreciate, here's the thing. If you're going to cover a song, if you're a hard rock or heavy metal band and you want to cover a song that's not originally hard rock or heavy metal, right? Like Motley Crue, and we've talked about this on the Hard and Fast podcast recently, like they regularly will cover some kind of, song, classic pop song or whatever. Like recently for The Dirt, they did like a Virgin, which was awesome. And they'll turn it into a rock song or a metal song. Okay, cool. Like do that. But generally don't just copy within your same genre, and unless your vocals are really something special, and look, the vocals in Hardline are not that special, don't bother. For example, Highway to Hell off of Quiet Riot's, I think it was like the 99 album, Alive and Well. I love this album. Kevin DuBrow has a very unique voice. You instantly know when Kevin DuBrow, rest in peace, when Kevin DuBrow is singing, you know it. And for him to do Highway to Hell, and having Rudy Sarzo on guitar, I actually thought that worked. Like I was like, that's interesting. There are times where if I want to listen to Highway to Hell, I'm going to put that on. And also because it's somewhat updated, a little more modern than from the Bon Scott version, which, it's still awesome, but like you kind of feel its age and whatever. And you don't have like an actual studio recording where Brian Johnson's doing it from AC/DC, right? So, to have a version of it with a more lush sound, and to have Kevin DuBrow's vocals on it, like it works. But in general, I think it's bad form to just like re-record a song from your own genre. And I feel like that's kind of what Hardline did here, even though Queen kind of stands above all genres, I think. I don't think that's unfair to say. I am a bit of a fan of them. But it just, I don't know, it didn't impress me. But the album overall is pretty good. I'll tell you, if it was the old days where, it's $18 a CD, would I spend $18 on this CD? No. No. There's not a song on here worth that much money. I wouldn't do it. And I'm starting to think, since I've been recording the Hard and Fast podcast, that might be the metric of how, the way to say, is an album actually really great or not? That is, if we were back in the 90s, CDs cost almost $20. Would you buy it? Would you spend $20 on that? Especially in the 90s when $20 meant more. This is one where no, that's not true. So that's going to kind of be my new rating system for a lot of these. As to where if you ask me, Beast in Black from Hell with Love, would you spend $20 on that, motherfucker? I'll pay the import tax on that one. I'll spend $60 on that album, and I'd get my $60 worth out of that. That's how great that fucking album is. So yeah, Hardline. Would I buy the CD? Nope. So there it is. I mean, it doesn't mean that it's not good music. It's just I'm not going to part with $20 for it. So, all right, there we go. And not to say again, Hardline's done good shit. Double Eclipse was an awesome album, and they've continued to do shit. I mean, this is probably like their seventh or eighth album, I think, over the years. But yeah, there's a couple good songs on here, but it's just not enough. So anyway, Hardline, Life, check it out. And if you really want to hear it, well, you know how to make that happen. So, okay, that'll be it for your Zomia ONE Underground Wednesday Q&A. Going to wrap this baby up. And well, anyway, so much more content still to come out in April. You got a great TIE Fighter Renegades coming up that I cannot wait to share with you. And I will see all of you on the other side.